Imagine the scene. An exhausted woman comes home after an endless day of work, and what awaits her? A husband who, instead of a hug or a gesture of affection, requires her to wash her dirty socks at 11 at night. And not any request, but an order accompanied by shouts and humiliation. For this is exactly what happened to Eulations, and the outcome of this story is a powerful lesson on self-esteem, boundaries, and the true meaning of respect in a relationship. Who looks out can think, how can a wedding become so fast? But the truth is that often the mask falls only after yes. Such an exemplary husband was a master of delight before the marriage, romantic, attentive, that kind that seems to have come out of a movie. 2 years of dating, 0 discussions, helps with housework and even prepared dinners when she arrived late. It looked perfect, too perfect. And it was precisely this perfection that left the mother of employ suspicious from the beginning. Experienced woman, who had already lived the bitterness of a bankrupt marriage, she knew how to recognize the signs of a man who hides her true face behind calculated gestures. The point is that it had a trump card that many ignore, the safety of a ceiling that was technically not his. The apartment, inherited by his mother, was modest, but it was her, or rather family. When it came to living after marriage, employ, with the wisdom of those who have seen a lot, offered the space to the newlyweds, but not without first taking a crucial precaution, a lease signed by. Just a formality, he must have thought of him at the time. But formalities, my dear, save lives. The first weeks were from Luna de Selm. Still kept the facade, although he already began to give signs of tiredness of the paper. Less help at home, more charges, that cliché phrase, you are very demanding. Until, a month after the ceremony, the bomb burst. Exhausted after an 8-hour standing day resolving crises at work, comes home dreaming with a hot shower and a soft bed. What do you find? An ugly-faced husband, a basket of dirty clothes thrown on the floor and an ultimatum, finally arrived. Look what has accumulated. You need to wash now. She, of course, refuses. It's almost 23 hours, it is exhausted, and, crucial detail, there is a washing machine. The answer? An access of fury worthy of a soap opera tyrant. Shut up. You live in my house and do what I send. It was at this moment that something inside Eulations clicked. It was no longer the woman he thought he could manipulate. It was the daughter of a mother who had already taught her the value of dignity. With a phone call, employ arrived in 20 minutes, not as a worried mother, but as a relentless lawyer. Documents in hand, firm voice, glances that would froze. Ah, was it a misunderstanding? You shouted with my daughter at 11 p.m., demanded that you wash your stinky socks and said this is your home? The silence of was the confirmation that he knew, he was cornered. You have 10 minutes to get your things, he announced employ, without blinking. His arguments? Pathetic. But we are family, this happens in every wedding, Polar, love me, don't do that. Love is not measured by beautiful words, but by actions. And his actions that night spoke for themselves. A man who confuses love with servitude does not even deserve the benefit of doubt. While joined his things in a hurry, spraying excuses lame on the air, observed everything with clarity that only comes when the last illusion is broken. There was no room for maybe he changed or it was just a bad day. Some mistakes are so serious that they don't deserve a second chance, and some men show their true face so soon. The way out is to close the door behind them. Literally. 5 minutes. It was the time it took to find that without respect, not even a ring on the finger ensures a place beside him. And for. It was the time it took to recover something much more valuable than a marriage, the certainty that when a woman says arrives, the world must hear. The right decision. And now, where am I going? He begged, stopped at the door with a suitcase in his hand, his face contouring in a grimace of self-pity. To your mother's house, he said, dryly, without blinking. I'm sure she'll love to wash her socks again. The door knocked with a deaf, definitive sound. Leaned on the stop, closed his eyes and songed deep. All that the scream, the humiliation, the final break lasted less than half an hour. But it seemed like an eternity. How are you? Asked her mother, wrapped her shoulders with a firm hug. It was strange, a mixture of sadness and relief, as if she had carried a weight for years without realizing it. This is normal, he whispered. You did it right. Trust me. Eulations looked at the papers on the table, documents, contracts, all meticulously prepared. Mom, do you really left everything ready in advance? The answer was a subtle, almost conspiracy smile. And did you think not? Orc adjusting the glasses, the sharp look. I saw how he changed. In recent weeks, every time I appeared, he had spoken to you as if he were his owner. And this morning, the neighbor told me that he heard him screaming last night, because of a shirt not passed. A sigh. When a man shows the claws, better cut evil by the root. If not, then, bleeds. A week later, came back. Not to apologize, to beg. The appearance was sloppy, the swollen eyes of sleepless nights. The mother did not hide the disdain as he saw him, a 30-year-old son returning to his lap as an irresponsible teenager. Let's try again, he pleaded, the trembling hands. I changed. I swear. She watched him in silence, studying every trace of that face that once seemed safe to her. You know, when you left, I didn't miss it. Just relief. He opened his mouth, but she continued, that says everything. We are still husband and wife for now, but tomorrow the lawyer comes in with the papers. He took what was left of his things and disappeared. The roomers arrived later, living in a quarter of Eulations, working overtime to pay the rent, while the medium programmer salary did not give to more than the basics. On the other hand, rediscovered the taste of freedom. The first months alone were strange silence, the absence of orders, charges for dirty socks. But soon she fell in love with that peace. No one screamed with her. No one treated her as a maid. The divorce was quick, there were no goods to divide, there were no children. Tried to complain the part of the house, but the documents proved, the apartment was from employ. No chance, said the judge. 6 months later, fate crossed them again. Eulations saw him in the mall, was walking in front of a woman sold out, carrying only a tiny bag as she dragged heavy bags. He gestured, explaining something with the arrogance of those who never make a mistake. It seems that he has not learned anything, he thought, sketching an ironic smile. The mother returned to their house only until you organize yourself, said employ, but neither made a point of changing that. Over time, realized that he liked these morning coffees together, of the conversations at night, the complicity that only mothers and daughters understand. They completed themselves. One cooked like no one else, the other cared for the details of the house, no orders, no resentment. Just respect. Until it arrived. Divorced, father of an 8-year-old boy, factory engineer. Since the first Aero day, he was different, calm in gestures, respect in words, willingness to give in. Do you want to leave today or do you prefer to stay home? He asked, without waiting for her to abandon her plans for him. Your ex was like this? He asked once, when told fragments of the past. Before the wedding, yes. Then, she shrugged. I understand. That's why I will show you all my defects now, so there are no surprises. Laughed, enumerating, snoring, I forget to remove the trash, I don't cook anything but scrambled eggs. What a horror. She took her hand to her chest, staring at shock. Anything else? Oh yes, I have a child who may not like you right away. And a mother who thinks every woman wants only my money. Laughed for real. Unlike, who hid his nature to the altar, he exposed his flaws like a map. Here are the holes, decide whether to cross. Knowing it was easier than she imagined. The boy, initially suspicious, soon realized that he did not force or pretend to be a mother. It only existed a kind presence, which he heard without judging. The mother-in-law, Demel, was a challenge. Suspicious looks, indirect questions. But left no doubt, mother, respect your opinion, but the choice is mine. If you don't like Eulations, that's fine. But I won't accept lack of respect. Over time, until demsed. After all, how to ignore a woman who treated her grandson with genuine affection, without subservience or artificiality? 2 years later, the request arrived. This time, didn't say yes at the same moment. The past taught her to be cautious. They discussed everything, where to live, how to share responsibilities, how to create, how to deal with families. What if in a month you become a domestic tyrant? She teased, a little joking. Answered in the same coin, What if you turn a lazy selfish, who only wants gifts and ignores my son? Then we divorce, said, bluntly. Fair. So let's make it work. The marriage was simple, only the closest. Employ and Orc, which were surprisingly understood, discovering affinities in revenues and opinions about politics. Proudly, he carried the alliances as if it were a sacred mission. At the party, Eulations remembered the first wedding, the expensive dress, the guests, the perfect photos. At the time, I thought the show guaranteed happiness. Now I knew, what mattered was what came after the vows, the daily choices, the respect that did not withereth, the willingness to fight together. 3 years later, he learned of the fate of the Moore's wife had also requested divorce. He had returned to his mother's house, complaining to anyone who wanted to hear, "Today's women don't know how to be wives." "Imagine just," said one known to. "He thinks the problem are them, that you were whimsical, that was selfish. That is, you didn't understand anything," murmured, shaking his head. "On the contrary. Now look for a traditional woman who knows her place." She sighed. Not for him, but for the tragedy of a man who confused dominating with love, and would never realize that while insisted on that, he would be alone. Because relationships are not built with hierarchies. They build themselves with two people looking at the same direction. And he would continue to jump from one frustrated relationship to another, like a castaway who insists on clinging to pieces of the same sinking ship. Meanwhile, flourished in his new life, not for revenge, but by choice. It was all that she once dreamed without daring to name, a partner who does not work efforts to share joys and storms, who saw no love as a transaction of favors, but as an alliance. In turn, had become the son she never imagined having, but now he loved with an intensity that surprised her every day. The boy's loyalty. It was spontaneous, as can only be the one who finally feels safe. Sometimes, as they folded clothes at night or prepared dinner side by side, remembered that absurd scandal of the socks, the gout that overflowed the glass of an already empty relationship. Today she saw clearly, she was never over dirty clothes. It was about the disdain in disguise of authority, about the attempt to reduce its existence to a pair of obedient hands. If she had not broken that cycle, if she had swallowed one more "it's my right" or "in my house, things are like this," who would it be today? A shadow. A servant with expiration date? With "things were different not by magic, but out of respect." If he asked her to wash something, it was with a "when to give" or "can I do later," and never like an order. Most of the time, they transformed the household chores into times of complicity. He cut vegetables as she seasoned, she passed the shirts as he got the bed, and everything became a joke, music, laughs. "You know, Mom," said once, serving tea for Ain, "I even thank the without him, I would not have understood what a real man is. And thank you even more for signing those exit papers before the anger turned on resignation." The mother laughed, shaking her head. "Imagine if you had endured 5 more years from that hell." "I don't even want to think." 5 years had passed since that night he shouted "my house, my rules," but the words still echoed in his memory, not as a wound, but as a reminder. Now she lived in a home where "our house" was not an empty slogan, but a tangible truth. Where his opinion had weight, his silences were heard, and his laughter was never interrupted by a scream. Meanwhile, in some corner of the city, was still looking for his ideal woman, the one who would accept washing his socks at 11 p.m. without complaining, who would swallow humiliations in the name of a stable home. And he would probably never find her, because the world had followed ahead, and he, stubborn, had remained standing in the last century. The only thing that had not changed was the law of harvest: who plants disrespect, reaps loneliness. And, finally, had learned to water only what deserved to flourish.